Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to be doing a teacher example of what I'm looking for when you perform your poem for our Flipgrid video on Friday. So I chose one of the poems that's on the list of poems I gave you called List of Poems for Analyzing and Performing. I want you to pick one of those poems, and then I want you to practice performing it and then record it on a Flipgrid video and send it to me so I can watch it. I know that you may have never done this before, and that's okay. It's totally expected that this might not necessarily be in your comfort zone, but honestly, that's why I'm doing it, because creative writing kind of forces you to go out of your comfort zone in small ways. And so I just wanted to see what you guys came up with. There is, of course, no one perfect way to recite a poem. Based on your own experiences and your own background and your own take on the words, you're going to say these poems differently. So I wanted to show you what I did with one of the poems that I put on the list, and I chose Your Brain is Not a Prison. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am just going to read through it out loud, and I'm not gonna make it fancy or anything. I'm literally just gonna read through it, all boring, just to get an idea of what the poem is even about. Okay, so here's Your Brain is Not a Prison. Again, this is not me performing, I'm just saying it out loud. A prison is the only place that's a prison. Maybe your brain is a beehive, or better, an ant's nest, a spin class, the sand stuck in an hourglass. Your brain is like, stop it. So you practice driving with your knees. You get all the way out to the complex of Little League fields. You get chicken fingers with 4 kinds of mustard: spicy, whole grain, Dijon, yellow. You walk from field to field. You watch yourself play every position. You circle each identical game, each predictable outcome. On one field you catch. On one field you pitch. You are center field. You are left. Sometimes you have steady hands and French braids. Sometimes you slide too hard into second on purpose. It feels as good to get the bloody knee as it does to kick yourself in the shin. You wait for the bottom of the ninth to lay your blanket out in the sun. Admit it, Sasha, the sun helps. Today, the red team hits the home run. Red floods every field. A wasp lands on your thigh. You know this feeling. So you just listened to me say the poem out loud, and I'm sure you're thinking that was a waste of my time and really boring. I don't want that to be my feeling when I watch you perform your poem. So that's why I want to make it really clear that I don't want you to just say your poem out loud. I want you to really dig into your poem and find a way to perform it effectively so that I am interested and engaged in the words that you're saying out loud. So I just said them to get an idea of what the poem was about, but that's not how I'm going to perform it. I was, though, able to find some things that are really interesting and that I can use in my performance to make this poem come alive. So you'll notice I have some of this highlighted, and I just did that before I started recording. These are the things I noticed when I read the poem out loud to myself. So the red represents what I think are important moments in the poem. I think the first sentence is really important, and that sticks out to me, and I think it's a powerful sentence. So I'm going to make it sound powerful when I perform. I noticed that she seems to be having a hard time. Her brain is too loud. It's buzzing. It's going too fast. And she needs something to distract her because her brain is like, stop it. And so that's what leads her to the Little League field, right? So that's an important moment in this poem. So that's why I highlighted it too. I noticed that the author's name is actually in the poem, which I don't see hardly ever. And so that's got to be an important moment. At least that's what I think. So I highlighted that section. And then I also highlighted the end because there's some sort of emotional shift there. Okay. I also highlighted moments where she uses the same starting letter in a really short span of time, really close together. That's called alliteration. So you've got brain, beehive, better. You've got fields, fingers for, field, field. You've got class and glass. So we've got a rhyme there. The whole poem doesn't rhyme, but we have a rhyme here. So that's probably something that I want to bring out. So I want to make sure that people can hear that alliteration. So I'm going to try and bring those words out a little more compared to the other words I'm saying. Finally, the last thing I noticed when I was just reading through it is the repetition that she uses towards the end of the poem. And when you have something that's repeated in a poem, that means a couple of things. Either the thing that is being repeated is really important. I don't know that these words are necessarily important in and of themselves, but it could also mean that we're leading up to the ending. And so I actually think I might pick up the pace a little bit here, because it's almost, to me, it feels like the repetition is making me want to get closer and closer and closer to the end. We're almost picking up speed. That might not be how you read it, but that's how I read it. Okay. So I noticed those times, each, on one field. You are. Sometimes you. She always does the repetition twice right next to each other. So I think that's important to bring out too. So now I'm going to practice a couple times saying this poem with a renewed sense of, hey, how can I take these little moments that I found and bring them out? Okay. Also think about what you think the message of the poem is. You don't have to be 100% right. You don't have to know for sure, but ask yourself what you think the message of the poem is and try to bring out that message and the emotions behind that message. I think that the woman in this poem is really trying to distract herself from something painful, right? Because her brain feels like a prison. It feels like a beehive. It feels like an ant's nest, right? That is very uncomfortable. And so she finds a place, in this case, the Little League field, that feels comfortable to her. And she works herself hard and she brings out her imagination, right? And she practices and she even hurts herself. And that feels better to her than what's going on inside her head, right? She pushes herself out of that prison into something that makes her feel better. So I need to bring those emotions out. And I'm not going to be perfect at it, but I'm going to at least try. And that's what I want you guys to do too. So let's imagine that I've practiced this a couple times and I'm trying to bring out these little things that I've noticed in my poem. And you can try to bring out the things that you notice in your poem. And now I'm going to try to not just say the poem out loud. I'm going to try to present this poem. I'm going to be thinking about my pace. I know that I'm going to want to be speeding up my pace here with the repetition. I'm thinking about enunciating my words clearly so you can understand them, especially the words that have the repeated sounds next to each other, as well as my rhyming words. I'm going to try to bring those out a little bit too. And then I'm really going to try to provide emphasis, importance on my red lines, because I think those are some of the most important moments and most important lines in the piece. Okay. So I'm going to try it. I'm just going to do it. And this is kind of what I'm hoping to have from you. Again, it's not going to be perfect. You might come up with a completely different way on how to read the poem, and that's fine. I'm just curious to see what you come up with. So here's me performing Your Brain is Not a Prison. Your brain is not a prison. A prison is the only place that's a prison. Maybe your brain is a beehive, or better, an ant's nest, a spin class, the sand stuck in an hourglass. Your brain is like, stop it. So you practice driving with your knees. You get all the way out to the complex of Little League fields. You get chicken fingers with 4 kinds of mustard: spicy, whole grain, Dijon, yellow. You walk from field to field. You watch yourself play every position. You circle each identical game, each predictable outcome. On one field you catch, on one field you pitch. You are center field. You are left. Sometimes you have steady hands and French braids. Sometimes you slide too hard into second on purpose. It feels as good to get the bloody knee as it does to kick yourself in the shin. You wait for the bottom of the 9th to lay your blanket out in the sun. Admit it, Sasha. The sun helps. Today, the red team hits the home run. Red floods every field. A wasp lands on your thigh. You know this feeling. Okay. So maybe you hated the way that I represented this poem, and that's totally fine. Okay, but I did more than just read it out loud, right? You felt that there was emotion. I tried to emphasize some of the things that were repeated. I tried to change my pace. Notice that at the end, when she finally lets herself rest, when she finally lets herself lay back, I let my pace get slower, right? Because now she's in a place of ease, or hopefully she's feeling better, right? And I tried to really make the red line stand out. You can pause, like take pauses, especially when you see punctuation, when you see dashes, when you see commas, when you see periods. Let yourself take a moment there. You don't have to rush through these poems. You can take spaces where they feel comfortable to you. So that's just one example. You can do this poem if you want and try and do it in a different way. You know, it's totally up to you, but I hope that helps my assignment make a little bit more sense. If you want feedback on anything, let me know. But otherwise, I am super excited to see your Flipgrid recordings. Please take some time to practice them before you record them. It's very easy for me to tell if you don't know the words quite well yet. So practice saying it again and again and again. Find those little things that you want to bring out. Find the emotions and the message you want to bring out. And then hit the record button and send it in. Anyway, thank you guys. Have a good one.